China, as a recent book pointed out, 1 billion customers. That is a mystery why it attracted so many foreign companies to come to China. Then what is the result of foreign companies operating in China? Somebody made a metaphor. It's like a pot of boiling water. If you put egg into it, it will become hotter and hotter in this boiling water, just like Google. Once meet the regulation of China, it becomes hotter and it exited the market, which caused a lot of opportunity loss for the company. It can also be, the foreign company can also be like a carrot. It's become very soft in a very low regulation environment, just like Apple and Nike, which however attracted a lot of criticism for their sweatshops in China. Then is there a third solution? Ladies and gentlemen, we propose to you the coffee. If you put coffee beans into the boiling water, it will give you a cup of very delicious cup of coffee. And that is a strategy which we propose to Visa today. That is integration. Ladies and gentlemen, we're Lagoon Consulting. I'm Nicholas, here with my colleagues. I'm Lennon.
I'm Olivia. I'm Ginger.
Okay, after knowing the coffee strategy for Visa, let us move on to look at how we came up with it. We firstly look into industry and what is the business model for a EPS, electronic payment service provider. As you can see, it's built the bridge between the merchants and supplier and the shoppers. It makes it very convenient for the merchants to attract for the transaction settlement for both sides, and its fee income majorly comes from the banks on both sides as well as the merchants itself. So how is that different in the Chinese environment? The first and foremost is the regulation. The Chinese EPS is highly regulated. That the foreign currency transaction settlement is blocked for foreign that the local RMB service transaction settlement is blocked for foreign companies, and the CUP is a monopoly now. And secondly, Chinese economy. That is what everybody is talking about, and currently China is undergoing a structural adjustment to its economy that it want to boost the consumer needs, and that will further boost the needs for credit cards. After looking at the industry, we look into the company, Visa. What is its SWOT? We all know it's strong in its technology talents, and most importantly, global presence. However, it's weak in local corporate operation here in China, which make its market share very small, and also it charges very high fees because of the intrinsic weakness in Visa. That is that it has to transfer the money, transfer the local currency to US dollar first before it set up the payment. However, for RMB service providers like CUP, they can do it directly if it is to RMB. We have opportunities from the WTO case, which may give us favorable results. We don't know yet. And we also have opportunities for local partnerships. However, we're threatened majorly from the CUP, the monopoly in China, and also we ourselves. We are also a monopoly, and we may face some antitrust cases by other competitors or even by the consumers. So after looking at the industry and the company, we conclude that the key issues that we're going to discuss today for Visa is firstly, what domestic strategy is it going to pursue in China? Secondly, what international tactics is it going to pursue in terms of keeping its global presence? Thirdly, what would it do in terms of WTO disputes? Let's move to first part, domestic strategy first. It's very interesting that it's a fight between two monopolies. We, Visa, is a monopoly, and CUP is also a monopoly. We have to make it clear that we're no longer in a monopolistic position here in China. As you can see on the picture, here in China, in front of CUP, we're just taking like 17% of the market share, and we're limited in our service and products. We're not a monopoly, we're not a giant, but a dwarf, frankly, in front of CUP. So what shall we do? First of all, we shall make it very clear that we cannot compete with CUP at all in many areas. So what we shall do is to avoid head-to-head competition. Currently, we're promoting co-branded EPS services, and we really want to keep it. Even though COP is a monopoly, we cannot compete. So what we shall do is do something that is silently, smartly, that avoid head-to-head competition, but give us opportunity to change our markets, to change our current status. So what we propose is, firstly, focus on market niche, and secondly, to prepare to shine. How do we focus on market niche?
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Now it's my part to talk about the market niche part. So here we propose 3 ways that we can create a market niche, mainly through cooperations, Chinese travelers going abroad, and online shopping. So as for the first one, it relates to cooperation. We plan to promote corporate credit card services to 2 types of companies here in China. The first is those multinational companies doing business in China, especially those involve lots of international travelings and international businesses. And the second type of company is those Chinese companies going abroad. Here an example is the Huawei, a cell phone producer. It has production factories all over the world, and its employees are traveling a lot to countries like African and American. For those employees, they have a strong need to have that kind of credit card that has a global network to help them with their traveling and with their working. So the second way to create market niche is to focus on Chinese travelers. We here focus on 2 areas. The first is the airline, and second is hotel, because they are directly related to the travelers all around the world. As for the airlines, we plan to form some direct cooperation and collaboration relationships through ways such as co-advertising. For example, on the advertisements for those airlines, we can sponsor them for a part of the fees and have our Visa logo on the advertisement to show that they can book their tickets online through our Visa services. So we also plan to form some strategic partnerships with companies like Star Alliances and SkyTeam. We can promote something like a VIP card that people use our Visa card to buy these tickets. They can accumulate some points and ask for future benefits. So that's all about the airline part, and the next is about the hotel. Same goes to the hotel, that we're planning to do some co-promotion activities, like have our logos on the advertisement and also on the websites. And for this part, we think that we can create some incentives for the hotels to retain their customers if they continuously using our Visa services and that kind of card accumulation ways, that they can keep on to returning to these hotels in the long run. And for those Chinese travelers, they can go to some international hotels like the Hilton, so that they can enjoy these benefits all around the world, which can definitely help the hotels to retain those wealthy Chinese customers. The last way to create market niche is through online shopping. Here we mainly focus on those foreign brands that have a high demand from Chinese customers, but currently they lack some physical stores in China. So for those brands, Chinese customers usually shop online and to ship the goods from foreign countries back to China. And for them, we can the examples for them is the new look companies. The apparel company mainly has stores in the UK, and also Forever 21, which just entered in China in Hong Kong here. So by helping these companies to promote their products in the Chinese market before, like when they actually enter in the Chinese market physically, we can promote these kind of services that the Visa can help a lot. So that's all about the creating market niche part. And next, let's welcome Nicholas.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. Okay, second part for domestic strategy is prepare to shine. You know that the favorable result for the WTO law case may come in 3 to 5 years, and it may not even come in that short term. But in the immediate term, we really expect that Visa will have the opportunity to reach out to local customers. So the question here is, what do we lack in 5 years if it really comes, and how should we prepare? As we know, as you can see on the screen, that we think what we shall improve on to prepare for future opportunities in the recent 5 years is, firstly, we lack local understanding of the customers. And secondly, we have very weak local operation here in China. And thirdly, we have very weak and limited merchant relationships. So our strategy is to silently smart, to expand our relationships, to improve on all these areas and prepare to the economic and regulatory change in China. So how should we do that? For the local understanding part, we cannot eat the pie so quickly, so that we recommend to expand in some selected areas in like Tianjin, Dalian, etc. Why did we select these areas? Because in the process of RMB internationalization, these areas are it's already open for foreign banks to operate here in the foreign currencies and local currencies services. So we expect that it's highly probable in the next stage, when the card EPS services are open, these areas will also be the first stages. So we recommend to launch some pilot services and products here. In doing that, we recommend Visa not to have such a high status and brand name for itself that it's become pride. It has pride and prejudice. We shall grab the 1 billion customers. So in these areas, what we recommend is to collaborate with local banks. In collaborating with them, we will avoid some competition from the big 4 banks, and also grasp local understanding, including like Bank of Dalian and Bank of Tianjin are our very good choices to collaborate with. Secondly, is our local operation. Currently, we only have 1 office in Beijing. That is really too small for our whole China domestic presence in the years to come. So what we should do is focus on 2 areas. Firstly, our head, our board of management in Beijing, that we shall have some more management with government relationships. We shall, even though without government relationship, we shall develop some with the banking officials, so that we can get quick information and better understanding of the regulations, because it's changing very quickly here in China. What's going to be the trend, we have to know it. And secondly, is our team, that we have to recruit more talents, local talents, in order to get to know the market better. Thirdly, is our relationship with merchants. Currently, we're a little bit over-reliant on CUP, that most of our credit cards are co-branded. So how can we get to know these merchants by ourselves? How can we develop sustainable relationships with these merchants? Firstly, we shall lower our charges. Current high charge by Visa is one of the most barriers. And secondly, we shall even make it even cheaper if we can set up long-term relationships. Let's quickly move on to the international part.
That's right. At domestic, we are the dwarf. But in the US market, we are actually a giant, having almost 70% to 80% of the market share. But right now, CUP is entering the global market, especially US. The major portion of the pie is that the influent Chinese consumer going to US to buy things. And in 10 years time, the Chinese customers is going to be the top travelers to US. And how are we going to do that? We think that the CUP is currently intruding our US market, and we think that there's no way that we can stop them because of their advantage with the Chinese consumer. And so we came up with a strategy to continue to promote the co-branded card. The thing that we can offer the CUP is our superior Visa network, which is actually the critical success factor for a company like us. And such through methods such as incentive sharing and reduced transaction fees if the amount of transaction is actually very large. We believe we can secure a cooperation relationship with CUP in the US market. The aim is to slow down the penetration of the CUP in the US market, and not only that, but also to increase their dependency on us, Visa. And there's actually a deeper meaning in this strategic move. It is that to maintain a good relationship with the CUP in China, whereby it is booming and whereby it is have a lot of potential. And the next part is actually the antitrust law that the Visa is currently facing against the US government and the merchandiser. In the past years, Visa is fined $2 billion to $5 billion of dollars because of the breaching the antitrust laws. And right now, it is actually facing a lawsuit that may result in tens to hundreds of billions of fine. Looking at the financial statement of the Visa, its annual income is just 2.96 billion. It cannot afford to be fined again and over and again. And therefore, we believe there should be a change in the way whereby Visa conduct its business with the merchandiser, with the banks, and with the customers. And also the second concern is that the change in the fee structure that Visa may have. Right now, in the US market, Visa charge about 2% of the transaction. But in markets such as France and Britain, it's only 0.5 to 1%. And right now, the government and the merchandiser is lobbying for a reduce in the fee. So the first solution is to invest in relation with the banks and the merchandiser. As I've said above, right now we cannot use methods such as preventing the merchandiser to go for cheaper cards in order to increase maintain our market share. Right now we have to invest in relationship. And one way is having discount for long-term merchandisers who have business with us, for example, 2 years or 3 years. And also to continue to increase our global market network, which I have mentioned is a critical success factor that we have. That's what the merchandiser and the corporate client is actually looking for. And the last part is to expand the pie. Since the transaction fee has a possibility of being reduced, we aim to increase the variety of service such as corporate and also the transaction amount. For example, if you are going to buy a car, a flat, we aim to introduce Visa into these services. And also source for alternative income such as geographical region, such as Brazil in Latin America, whereby the potential of spending is still very much. Right now, I will move to my teammate Ginger to continue.
Thank you. Now let's look at the WTO dispute and its possible solution on the current dispute against China. Though sometimes it may take longer time than we expected to reach a conclusion, but once there is a conclusion, it will affect our competition landscape in China very largely. So first, let's look at the process of this distribution settlement. First, WTO, and they will only initiate from their member government. And these governments will mainly look at two aspects. First is whether it has industry-wide influence, and for sure for the case of Visa it is. And also we will look at whether there is a good legal basis. And so for industry areas, they can reach the WTO dispute process through this member government, and mostly they are mainly big corporate with deep pocket money, because this process usually take very long time and also use a lot of resources and money as well. So for Visa, we think that a good choice is to have collaborate with other institutions in these areas, rather than fight for it itself. So now let me give you timeline prediction on this dispute and its settlement. We think that, according to our prediction, we think that the panel will submit its final report at around May 2012, and then it will take around 6 years to reach a final adoption of the report, as well as the authorization of retaliation. And finally, at around 2020, there will be a real market for access in terms of the Chinese financial institution market. So our contingent plan is to, at the first stage, to have cooperation continue with CUP, and then move on to develop our own network with local banks, and finally to have our own independent network of EPS, so that will be irrelevant with other EPS such as CUP. Finally, let's look at This is a timeline of our implementation. As I've mentioned, in short term, up to 2015, we'll continue to do a good job in domestic market, and then we'll follow the international pace of Chinese to move to other areas of the market, and finally, we'll go on to develop our own independent EPS at around 2020.
I'm sorry, I need to stop you there. 20 minutes are past now.
How will the US react to that ruling? What will China's reaction to the US reaction be? And therefore, what does that mean for Visa? So the chain of events that we're seeing previously in the tire case, where there was import duties placed on Chinese, is there any similarity for Visa here?
Firstly, I think that these two cases are quite different from each other. For these cases, it's that originally Chinese and U.S. government has a bilateral agreement with each other when China joined WTO, and according to the agreement, China should have full market access to foreign banks by 2006. So from this evidence, we can see that most likely that China will lose the case because they do not have a good legal basis against this dispute. And we think that, as I mentioned, we think that maybe around 2015 there will be a final conclusion and final report on this appeal, and then there will be some fightback from China, like administrative measures and all those even retaliation. But I think that this process of open up market is the big trend. And so we still believe that eventually China will open its financial market at around 2020 or 2025.
Can I build on Peter's question? And first I want to say, Nicholas, Leonard, Ginger, Olivia, thank you for your presentation. It was great. If the ruling does go against China, we all know nobody pushes China around. So is there a likelihood of retaliation? Is there a likelihood that the Chinese government knows Visa was behind the push, behind the complaint, and therefore continues to find other ways to restrict our trade?
I think that retaliation in this area must be a little bit hard for China. Yeah, so you see financial institution and Chinese companies are mainly acting in domestic market, and maybe hard to go to the foreign market and fight against other corporate companies there. So it's a little bit different from international trade and import-export. Yeah, so it's a little bit hard to.
True, if the banks haven't opened up yet.
Yes, very good question. If I add on to that, I think that retaliation is very possible, especially in those strategically important areas, including the automobile and airline industries, which China really wish to protect its domestic companies. But for this Visa, the EPS service provider, as we can see, its client is the consumers. So in the process of keeping its economic growth, China's trend for structural adjustment is to boost the consumer needs. And if such retaliation would harm the interest of the consumers and other stakeholders, we think that it's also a little bit hard to implement. And currently, the monopoly is also under discussion by Chinese government, and it's not taking measures to try to resolve some monopolistic industries like the telecom, how it's going to deal with the China Telecom and the
China Mobile.
And China Mobile. So I think possibly China wouldn't wish to, in the process of RMB internationalization and China's economic boosting, it wouldn't really wish to build another monopoly, which may cause future problems for itself.
If I may conclude, to simply put in a nutshell, is that so long that Visa presence in China provides benefit to China and different stakeholders such as consumer, we think that the retaliation from China may still be possible, but will not hit Visa hard. It may be a stance of gesture, but not substance.
Visa has been charging kind of higher percentages compared to others. Have you guys done any review or calculation on what sort of impact to Visa if the percentage rate actually is lower?
You mean, excuse me, do you mean the charge in China or worldwide? Or
Charging the Chinese customer or Chinese merchants.
As we can see that for the credit services provided by Visa, like most of these services are not so direct compared to CUP. That put intrinsic weakness for itself, and even if it lowers its fees, it cannot reach the level that CUP can achieve. So that is why we mentioned in the first part that we will avoid such price competition, and even if we involve, we will not win. So our perhaps for the intercharge fee, we will lower it a little bit for the future, good for ourselves. But in the short term, we will lower it a little bit, but our strategy is keep what we are and focus on the niche market.
Yeah, to supplement, we think that the calculation that we have done shows that it is simply not possible to lower the fee to the level of the CUP because we do not have the competitive advantage that the CUP have. So to answer your question, it would not be possible to conduct business in China to have a respectable profit margin if we lower the fee in terms to the level of CUP.
Yes, that's basically because of the network that the CUP now owns in the Chinese, especially the merchandise market.
Does that not shoot a hole in your international approach then? Why would customers use Visa in your cross-promotion idea when CUP are clearly a lower cost alternative?
Yes, thank you. As I've mentioned, one of the key competence that Visa have is the global network. Even though CUP is trying to be globalized, but it is still very limited in terms of its networking. For example, it only have about networking in about 12 countries in the world, and that's not comparable to Visa, whereby we have merchandise up in tens of thousands.
Yes.
So I think there is still potential and incentive for us to cooperate with CUP and also have an edge over CUP.
Excuse me, can I clarify that you're asking about the choice of Chinese consumers? Why would they choose? Why would they choose Visa at all if CUP charges no fees for them for the transactions?
Maybe I can explain it from real experience because we are from mainland China and we also have experience in foreign countries. We find that originally we think that UnionPay is the only credit card that exists in the world, and then when we go to foreign countries, we find that there is no UnionPay at all. All we can find is Visa and MasterCard. And then we try to look at our own credit card, we find that we actually have co-branded, it's Visa and UnionPay. And in that case, we'll choose Visa and try to use it. And then later on, we find that most of the online purchase, like Amazon, they also use Visa, and then we start to using it from the very beginning and get familiar with it. So I think though there is a little bit difference in the fee, but once you go to foreign countries, you have that foreign exchange rate. They also have difference in that, but you will not care that much about that little 0.2 or 0.1%.
Because the customer simply have no choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned an incentive plan with the airlines and hotels. Most corporations are looking to get into China. Why would a hotel or an airline choose Visa over CUP that may be looking the other way?
I think here we'll just most focuses on those multinational companies and those airlines with operations all around the world. And for those Chinese travelers, that they have this kind of needs and they are traveling all around the world, so they have to find somewhere to stay and to find an airline company. So that is a huge trend with consider now that a large number of Chinese, especially big business people who have that kind of money and they are traveling around. Yeah,
to add on to that, we think that there is a really good strategic fit and value proposition for both companies. Like CUP has very large bargaining power, but what it can provide to the hotel is only limited in China. But for Chinese customers, it has Visa all around the world, and also these hotels have its subsidiaries, has its outlets in all over the world. So we think there's a better fit for the needs of both companies, and it will possibly create more synergy for both companies than choosing the monopoly here in China.
So basically, we can offer more.
All right, that concludes the Q&A session. The 10 minutes are up. You're invited to stay in the room or leave
Yeah.
the room as you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.